At first, it was lonely a bit because I didn't have really many friends up here and I was leaving behind all of my good friends basically in Tokyo. But
Hey guys, how you doing? I'm Takashi from Japan. So today I'm going to interview American living in Japanese countryside. So now I'm in North Japan, Tohoku region, Iwate Prefecture, Morioka City. He lived in Tokyo for 10 years and moved to countryside 10 years ago. We're gonna discuss about differences life in Tokyo, Japanese countryside. Okay, let's get started. Okay, thank you for your time. Can you introduce your background?
sure, my name is Quinlan Ferris, and I am from the United States, from Madison, Wisconsin, in the frozen north. And I've been living in Japan since the year 2000, so more than 23 years now. I lived the first 10 years in Tokyo, after which I moved up to Iwate in northern Japan. Specifically, I'm now based in Morioka, where I work currently in tourism as a guide, a promoter, and I'm also a YouTuber. I have a YouTube channel called Go North Japan.
I came here to Iwate Prefecture from Tokyo, a couple hours by bullet train. As you can see, very countryside compared to Tokyo. And so I'm gonna ask you about your life in the countryside. And then you used to live in Tokyo for 10 years. So, the difference is Tokyo and the countryside. You speak Japanese, about learning Japanese as well. Okay, first of all, you came to Japan 2000.
Yeah.
So 23 years ago, what brought you to Japan from America?
Yeah, my original plan was actually to come and live in Japan for a year or so, earn some money, then travel in India, Nepal, Tibet, and then maybe rinse and repeat. Keep doing that pattern. But when I actually came to Japan, I really enjoyed living here. I found a lot that I loved, and I ended up keeping my base here and staying. So it was kind of accidental. I was never one of those people who was really into Japan when I was young.
You didn't watch anime.
I didn't watch anime. I never even heard of Studio Ghibli. Yeah.
You was planning to live in Japan for 1 year, ended up 23 years. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's how it was.
What was it like living in Japan in 2000?
Well,
in Tokyo?
Yeah, I was in
Okay.
Tokyo. I was in northern Tokyo in Kitaku. Tokyo was very exhausting. I first showed up on a tourist visa. I self-sponsored my visa, getting two part-time jobs teaching English, which I did for 1 year. But while I was doing that, I started selling things online. And within a year, sort of selling things on eBay back in the day made me more money than teaching English. And so I quit teaching English after exactly 1 year and just started a web shop, both a web shop and using net auctions, and did that for a number of years.
What was Tokyo like in 2000? I guess not many foreigners compared to now, can you mention anything?
Sure. Well, yeah, the main difference was a lot grittier. Like I lived in Kitaku, so Akabani, which now is Akabani is a beautiful station now. It's really been rebuilt. But back then, there were real gangsters all over the place. I saw like in the morning somebody like with blood all over him in a phone booth talking to someone with a bright red suit on, which means he was probably a gangster. He had a bright red suit on. And you'd walk home at night and there'd be like, you walk by these sort of hostess clubs, kabakura in Japanese. There'd be like 6 dudes in suits and sunglasses at night just sort of standing outside the club and just sort of staring at everybody who walked by, who were gangsters. You don't see that anymore.
Ikebukuro was famous for that as well, I think.
Oh, yeah. Ikebukuro was dirty and gritty. I mean, I don't mean dirty as in garbage. I mean dirty as in scary. Like, it looked like a kind of criminal place. And then also, foreigners, yeah, there weren't many. And so some of my closest friends I met just by seeing them and being like, oh my God, this guy looks like they're from like the States maybe. And me just running up and saying, hey, man, do you live around here? And some of those people have become like friends that are still my friends 20 years later. And that would never happen now because you'd never greet a random foreigner just because they were a foreigner now. We're a dime a dozen, you know.
Right. After first year in Japan, in Tokyo, you ended up living in Tokyo for 9 years after that, right?
Yeah.
Like, can you tell how did it go?
It was just 1 year at a time, you know. It wasn't like I made a decision, now I will stay for the foreseeable future. It was just, all I got going with my business, and then I discovered the old downtown neighborhoods of Tokyo, the Shitamachi, and I really liked exploring those little alleys and things. I got into photography for a while, got really into sumo. For a while, I went to like at least 3 or 4 days of every sumo tournament. They go in days of 15, three times a year, 3 days of 15 throughout the calendar year in Tokyo. And I'd go and I'd take all these black and white photos and try and meet the wrestlers, go to the sumo wrestler parties and things like that. I just got into different things, the local festivals, Sanja Matsuri, all these things. And one day led to another. And before I knew it, I had sort of built a community that I loved and was really enjoying life there. Yeah. Okay, well, it was great. made a huge circle of friends. We would meet regularly, nice and lively and fun. But the summers were just unbearably hot. And the winters, I'm from an area where we get a lot of snow, and there'd be like a little snow once and it would melt immediately. And then you want to go skiing or do some sort of day trip out into the wilderness. And so you go do a day trip or an overnight trip from Tokyo, and every direction you go, whether it's toward Niigata or Nagano or Yokohama or Chiba, it's all crowded because everybody has the same idea. And so anything you do is just packed. And so as much as I liked it, I hate lining up. I don't want to wait for an hour to get into a good restaurant. And I kind of started thinking that I wanted to get out of the big city.
Okay, so why did you move to Iwate Prefecture, Morioka? Specifically, because it can be anywhere in the countryside if it's a reason, right?
Well, I had some people that I knew really well that had invited me numerous times up to Iwate. And so I'd been and visited Hanamaki. I would often go up to Iwate a couple times a year. So I knew from visiting for, weekend here, a week there, several times. And so I knew that I really liked the area. Loved the hot springs, the local festivals, and the skiing. There are really cheap ski resorts here that are everywhere. I mean, like from my house now, in less than an hour, I can drive to like 6 different ski resorts. And they're not crowded. You can just go up on the lift again and again and again. It's nice. So I kind of had a lot of connection to Iwate, and so I thought I'd just give it a go. So I just sort of jumped. And at first, it was lonely a bit because I didn't have really many friends up here, and I was leaving behind all of my good friends, basically, in Tokyo. But just like when I moved to Japan, though, I left behind a whole big network of friends in the United States, and I knew no one in Tokyo. So I'm used to sort of jumping into the darkness and landing somewhere exciting. And so, yeah, first couple of years up here were rocky, especially since as soon as I moved, 4 months after I moved was the great East Japan earthquake and tsunami. I moved in December of 2010, and it was March 11th of the next year, just a little over 3 months afterwards, that suddenly everything was screwed up.
Were you here on that day?
Oh, yeah, I was here. I remember it very clearly. The Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami was the strongest earthquake in 100 years, which caused a tsunami which killed, I believe, more than 20,000 people on the coast. I was inland, and so I didn't experience the tsunami, though I saw that. I was driving, and suddenly it's like I felt like my engine something was wrong with the car. It's kind of being pulled off to the side. And so I pulled over, and then I noticed my car was bouncing back and forth on its wheels, and the electricity pole was going woo, 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 making a funny noise. So I opened the car door and sort of leapt out onto the rice field off next to the road, because I was kind of in a rural road. And 5.5 minutes long. It was incredible. When I got back home, my computer, my monitor, all of my books, all dishes, everything was just, destroyed. But the house itself was fine. Just everything was knocked all to hell. Power was out, and so all the stoplights were out, all the supermarkets were empty, there was nothing, my cell phone didn't work. It wasn't until the following Monday, because that happened on a Friday, that we got the power back, and I realized just how bad the devastation was on the coast. So I can't even really complain about anything inland compared to what the tsunami did and what everybody, I'm sure, is familiar with along the whole coast of Iwate and Miyagi prefectures.
How long did it take to get back to normal life, let's say?
Getting back to normal life took a long time, at least maybe 6 months, because where I lived, we had refugees. Well, not refugees is the wrong word, but there were a lot of people from the coast
Who lost their home.
who lost their homes, who came and lived in centers that were a 5-minute walk from my house. So I came to be good friends with a lot of these people who had lost family members, lost their homes, lost everything. And so I heard their stories.
Morioka, Iwate, 10 years. Can you describe your 10 years life in Japanese countryside?
So up here in Morioka, it's well, there's a lot of space. I was able to buy a rather large house in 2015 that used to be a liquor store / house. It's like the family that ran the liquor store was their family home with the liquor store. So I've got a huge place. I've got a big garden. It's I don't have to worry about the last train. I can go anywhere on foot or bicycle or even take a taxi. It's cheap. Wonderful to be somewhere that has so many things within easy access that you have all to yourself. So within, say, an hour or two drive, which I don't mind doing, I could go to the coast where there are 200-meter high cliffs, hand-carved tunnels, gorgeous rock formations. Also, it's a national park, the Sanriku Fuko National Park. And I'll go to places where there's no one but me and whoever I bring with me. It's empty. I love that so much. I don't think I could get used to having to always be in a crowd.
Like, were you already kind of that person, like, who value nature? Because for me, I live in Tokyo, but I don't mind not having nature, to be honest. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess growing up, I went camping and on long camping trips with the parents where we take a canoe for 2 weeks and all our food for 2 weeks and go.
So it was already in your life.
It was in my life, but when I was younger, I went off to college in a bigger city for a while, and I also loved living in Tokyo. And so I didn't miss nature so much when I was living in Tokyo, but I sort of rediscovered my love of it when I came up here.
It's difficult to make Japanese friends as a foreigner. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's easy to make casual friends, sort of acquaintances, and people who you know through an activity or hobby and do that hobby together. I think making the kind of friends that you're used to as an American, sort of these people who you just talk to about anything. You really have a heart to heart. You can come to them with your problems. They'll come to you and rely on you. This sort of really tight friends, that's hard. That takes a long time. Japanese people aren't as quick to open their deep, dark, internal soul to you as we are, at least where I'm from in the Midwest.
Do you have like close Japanese friends?
I do, yeah. But that doesn't happen immediately. It takes a long time. You know, you've got to generally know them for a long time and sort of build up a history together and trust. They don't open up right away like you can sometimes with people from your own country.
Any differences when it comes to making friends in Japan and in the States? Like how to start conversation or how to start friendship, how to getting closer to the person, etc.
Yeah, this is a huge topic. Other Americans or Westerners, we start with jokes a lot. That's how we open up things. We often make some self-deprecating joke, or we make fun of ourselves, or we'll make a comment about something else, and we come in through humor. But with Japanese people, of course, the sense of humor is different, and they don't appreciate the same types of sarcasm or jokes that we do in most cases, unless they've lived abroad for a long time. And so you can't do the same thing. You have to go more slowly. They're going to be a little bit shocked if you try and go in right away with something deep level.
Do you believe that drinking helps you to make friends here? Because drinking culture in Japan, like it's huge. So what do you think?
Yeah, drinking culture is so huge in Japan. So just to give you an example of how huge drinking culture is in Japan, if you're healthy and you don't drink as much as other people, then there's a word. It's Kyukanbi, which literally means liver vacation day, which means you take 1 day off a week not to drink. Because you're a healthy person, you only drink 6 days a week, which drinking 6 days a week by American standards is nuts. That's so much.
Oh, really? You guys drink that much?
If you drink 6 days a week, you're an alcoholic. At least where I'm from. Maybe some people do, but my parents would say you're an alcoholic. A lot of people would. So it's just different standards. So that said, yeah, drinking probably does make it easier to get to be friends with people, probably, but you don't need to. You don't need to drink. There are ways around it, but yeah, it does make it easier. Yeah.
You started drinking more after you coming here, Japan?
Oh yeah. Yes, I drink a lot more than I did in the States. It is what it is.
Do you think it's a good thing or bad thing? Including everything, like making friends and everything, not just alcohol, of course.
It's both. It's hard to say. I mean, I think health-wise, weight-wise, everything like that, it'd be better to drink a lot less. Yeah. That said, I've gotten a certification. I'm a certified international sake sommelier, Kokusai Kikizakishi, and I love Nihonshu, I love craft beer, and I very much enjoy drinking. I'd say it's a net positive in my life because I in my old age, I drink less than I did 10 years ago. Maybe 10 years ago I was drinking too much. Now, I drink almost every day, but only a little bit.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, Surfshark. On public Wi-Fi, Surfshark is essential for protecting your online data from hackers. It's a shield for your personal info. Surfshark isn't just about security though. As a film fan in Japan, I often hit geo-blocks on streaming service, missing out on Ghibli films and One Piece films. With Surfshark, these limitations vanish. It lets me access a diverse range of movies and TV shows globally. For those outside Japan eager to explore unique anime and local content, Surfshark is your key to this rich culture. Here's the best part. Surfshark comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, making it a risk-free choice. And with my code Takashi, you snag an amazing deal with 5 months extra free. A perfect treat this December. Don't miss this special Surfshark Christmas offer. Click the link and use the code Takashi to enjoy 5 additional months free. Okay, let's get back to interview. So after living in Japan for 23 years, how has Japan changed from 2000 to 2023?
Well, the obvious change is the amount of foreign tourists. There are so many foreign tourists now that come to Japan, whereas there weren't anywhere near that many. For example, one of the main tourist attractions is the Fushimi Inari Shrine in Kyoto, which is just famous now. I first went there in 2001, and there were no foreigners there. There was hardly anyone there. It was empty in the middle of the afternoon, which is now, it's like Shinjuku Station. So the tourism, the over-tourism is one big difference. Also, now it's finally becoming cashless at last. I don't use cash on a daily basis now. I use my phone. I use like things like Diburai, PayPay. Finally. You had to use cash for the longest time. That's changed. But a lot of things haven't changed. There's still a lot of discrimination against foreigners when it comes to renting an apartment. I know whenever you go to get a new apartment, whether you're in Tokyo or up here, you inevitably find some rental property. You find it online, you go to the real estate agency, they make a phone call, and they're like, sorry, the landlord says no foreigners. And it's like, that's okay. It's not against the law, or it is, but it's a gray zone, whatever. So there's still inconveniences for foreigners on that. Economy is stagnated. Prices are just starting to go up now, but basically there's been deflation for most of the time when I'm here. Prices, just a little bit of inflation, but basically it's still, wages haven't gone up much. If anything, English teaching wages, for a lot of the people I know who teach English, those wages have gone down in the time I've been here, since the year 2000, which is shocking. Yeah, change. I don't know. I'm curious, what do you think has changed?
What do I think? Because I don't know, because I was born 1999, so
Okay, that's right, you haven't seen it.
what I want to ask is that what about Japanese people? Not about social system.
Right.
And what about Japanese people's mindset? Or it can be English skill, it can be anything, but like, what do you think?
That's a tough question. I mean, time passes so slowly. It's hard to see. But I think that, because maybe there are so many foreign people now, Japanese people are less curious about foreigners than they were before. Before, anyone who looks like me was a rarity, even in Tokyo. And so you had a lot more people who were interested and reaching out to you and saying hello. And now we're a dime a dozen. And so people don't give you a second glance in most cases. English has gotten somewhat better, but there's still, compared to other countries in Asia, the level of English is still shockingly low in Japan.
You know why?
I think it has to do with the education system. I'm not an educator, so I couldn't say the details, but I think the education system universities in Japan teach, like a lot of the English classes, or any class in English university or in university in Japan, is once a week. So you've got 1.5 hour classes once a week. Whereas if I'm studying Chinese in the United States, which I did for a couple semesters, it's 8 classes in 5 days. So it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, twice a day, and then Tuesday, Thursday once. And that's how you study a language as different as Mandarin. In Japan, they've got written English for an hour and a half once a week, spoken English for an hour and a half once a week. It's just a dumb way to do it, in my opinion.
You used to teach English in Japan, right? Can teaching English in Japan be a trap?
Absolutely. It's a good way to get your foot in the door, and that's why a lot of people come to Japan, because they're able to so easily, because just about anybody with a college degree can get an English teaching job. But I know a number of people who ended up getting married and having kids and being in a position where, say, their wife doesn't want to go back to their country, so they can't go back. They're stuck in Japan, but they don't have a way to do any other job but teaching English. I think coming to Japan and teaching English for, say, 3 years, maybe 4 or 5 years tops, but probably up to 3 years is best, is a great experience. And I'd recommend it to almost anyone, just as a way to experience living in another country. And if you're smart about it, maybe you could even save a small amount of money, but not right now with the ridiculously weak yen. But for people who end up just sort of getting stuck in a post-college party lifestyle and living here for 5, 7, 10, 15 years, but not really doing anything to develop themselves personally or professionally, just sort of living the fun, easy life. I know some people who are in their 40s now, and they're screwed. I hate to say it that way, but a lot of them, they hate teaching English, but if they go back to their home country, they're going to end up only with entry-level jobs. It's hard to start a career with no experience suddenly at that age. They have no networking. Watched a lot of people become more and more unhappy with their life in Japan because they hate their job, but they don't know what else to do.
So would you say that unless you love teaching English, it can be a trap?
Right, right. On the other hand, I do know a couple of people who are ALTs, which is an entry-level English teaching job, and are still ALTs, but they love it. They love the kids, they love the schools, and they're very happy. So some people, I don't want to say it's always bad.
But the thing is, like, not many people teaching English in Japan don't love teaching English because that's the easiest way to get, into Japan. So
Yeah.
that's the most of the case, right?
Exactly. If you're teaching English just because it's an easy way to get a job, limit it to 3 years. 5 years tops, but 3 years best. On the other hand, if you love it and this is your meaning in life, this is your passion, you love teaching English in the schools, then sure, go nuts and make that your life.
It was not the case for you.
No. I mean, I like people. I don't mind doing it, but yeah, 1 year was enough for me.
Okay. So you basically guiding tourists in Japan, right? Traveling Japan and living in Japan are completely different things. How different do you think it is?
Traveling in Japan, you're just experiencing, and people are experiencing you as a tourist and a traveler. You're experiencing the service industry, and people are going out of their way to help you, to make your time memorable and special. And it's one of the wonderful places to travel around the world. You'll have a great experience traveling here. I think pretty much everybody does. Living in Japan often means working in Japan, and working in Japanese companies can be hell. That's why I don't do it. The hours are long. There's lots of meaningless meetings. There's sexism. There's hard-headedness. People don't want to move into the modern era. People still use fax machines. There's all sorts of ridiculous things. And so working in a Japanese business, also the wages are much lower. That can be really, terrible.
At the same time, I think it's perfect country for self-employed. Like you, like me, we get only good from Japan, and we don't need to see the bad side of Japan. Yeah.
Japan is a great country to be self-employed. And I think if you're going to come to Japan and you want to live here happily in the long term, plan to somehow start your own business because that's the way to avoid 90% of the unpleasantness and get all the good stuff.
So how do you see Japan's future? What's going to happen?
I'm cautiously optimistic just because that's my personality, but I know a lot of Japanese people who say, もう終わってる. Like they think the economy is screwed, the government,
Dying.
it's a geriocracy, the old people are in charge, making bad decisions, and it's just going to go to hell from here. And logically speaking, it does look like stuff is just going to get worse. But I'm not logical, I'm optimistic. And so I think that things will somehow work out. We'll get more tourism, maybe younger people will come and maybe things will somehow improve. But I don't have any logical reason for that because all logical signs are looking towards a dark future.
Every year, number of foreigners who's gonna live in Japan gonna be extremely increasing because government trying to do that as well, right? Do you think it's good things for Japan itself as a country?
Absolutely. I hike with a guy once in a while who we were talking about how more and more foreigners are coming, and I was saying they need even more to prop up the welfare system, the public health care system, all of these things. We need more people and we need more foreigners because Japanese don't have enough kids. And he said, yes, but if there's more foreigners, will be more crime. And that view is so frustrating. Foreigners equal crime because if that isn't racist, I don't know what is, right? I mean, come on. And then he said, oh no, I don't mean foreigners like you. I mean Asians, Chinese, Koreans. Like, that's worse, It sounds really... And so I think it's unfortunate a lot of Japanese harbor basically racist views against foreigners, but we need to become more international. We need more foreigners to live here. We need to bring a lot of fresh ideas in. I do love Japanese festivals, Japanese traditional culture, how many artisans there are here, all the people who are, they're the 15th or 16th generation, this long line of artisans. So I love this traditional culture, but we've got two choices, right? We could work hard to preserve this as a sort of Disneyland, a sort of caricature of itself, a little time capsule of what it used to be, in which case it'll need foreign money, it'll need all these things, but sure, maybe it'll be propped up. Or we can have it be a vibrant, living culture, which will change and will come into the present. And a lot of those traditional things may become more international, may be less Japanese and have more international influences. But then we'll have a prayer of still having retirement money, of still having a national healthcare system and having an actual healthy economy. You can't have both. Japan has to change to survive. Yeah, it's sad, but I think we're going to have to go that direction.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, it's inevitable.
It's inevitable. Yeah, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Okay, we talked a lot, but at the end, anything you want to say for my viewers?
I would just say if you're planning a trip to Japan, really think about visiting North Japan, Tohoku. This area, Morioka, the city where I live and where I'm based, is right in the center. And if you're on a rail pass or even not, there's so many things that you can do within a day trip from there, whether that's visiting some of the famous hidden hot springs where you're out in the middle of the mountains with a meter of snow everywhere around you in an outdoor bath, or a village kakunodate with samurai residences, or the towering 200-meter cliffs on the Sanriku coast, or any number of different volcanoes. Basically, no matter what you want to experience, you can get it in northern Japan, and it's not going to be crowded. Maybe you do need to first do the main golden route, as we say, Tokyo, Nara, etc. But for your second visit or the second half of your first visit, really think about getting off the beaten path and exploring what this area of North Japan has to offer you, because there is so much here. If you do visit North Japan, you'll be one of less than 2% of all tourists, and so you'll have really a unique experience. You'll have stories to tell, things to bring back, an experience that almost everybody who visits Japan misses. And I think that's what you want out of traveling, isn't it? Something unique, something all your own. And one of the best places to get that is up here in North Japan. So in terms of best weather, it's different depending on where you're going. So I was about to say September because that's really nice weather up here in Iwate Prefecture. But I remember I first moved to Tokyo in September and it was just stupid hot, crazy humid and miserable. And so it depends on where you're going. If you're going to Tokyo, maybe October, November is better weather, or April, May probably is good weather in Tokyo too before it gets hot. And in early April, you might still catch the tail end of the cherry blossoms and things. Avoid August if you're going to Tokyo because it's just so damn hot. It's miserable. And also you want to be careful about the holidays. The Obon holiday, which for most places is around August 14th to 16th, everything is just really crowded. It's hard to get tickets. And then also Golden Week, the first week of May. It's famous, but I'll be one more person to remind you, be careful of Golden Week because it's hard to get tickets anywhere and hotels are booked and everybody else is on vacation.
What about Christmas and New Year's? Is it a big thing here?
Yeah, it's a family holiday. And so a lot of stuff will be closed. A lot of businesses are closed over the New Year's holiday. Christmas is more of a date night here, as you probably heard from other people on this channel. It's a couples thing, Christmas Eve. And the equivalent of American Christmas is more like Oshogatsu, which is over New Year's. A lot of businesses are closed, a lot of banks are closed. Be careful.
Okay, so next question is about learning Japanese. So you took a JLPT N1 when?
In 2004, so it wasn't called N1 then. It was just called EQ.
You came to Japan with zero Japanese at first, and how did you learn basically?
Well, when I first came to Japan, I was living with a Japanese person, and we bought textbooks, I made flashcards, and they really cracked the whip in helping me study. And so I didn't do it on my own completely. I had the benefit. I mean, now I live alone and everything I do is self-powered now. But at the time, I had assistance and I was able to work with a Japanese person every day of the week to study and drill, and I had the whip was cracked for me to learn and study hard. There were no smartphones, no apps, and so I literally had stacks of paper flashcards where I was writing kanji and grammatical expressions on one side and flipping it over for English on the other, and then just drilling and drilling and drilling.
You translate as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. As an English-Japanese translator, what's the best way to learn Japanese?
I would say that it is to get a textbook and work with a textbook, and preferably with a Japanese teacher or tutor or person who can help you with the textbook to make sure you're understanding it correctly, and learn all of the skills at once. All at once, little by little, as opposed to just focusing on one of those skills or two of those skills and leaving the writing till later. I think it's important to learn kanji and to learn that a little at a time as you're learning everything else.
Do you believe that kanji is very important to learn?
Absolutely. So when I registered my Airbnb with the prefectural government, I had to wade through just mounds of red tape and just living alone as I do now and doing taxes and getting all the different stuff you need to read kanji. I mean, you can't do those things unless you have a spouse or someone who you rely on for everything.
But you don't want to do that.
That makes you kind of an adult child if you're relying on someone else for everything. I really believe in being independent and being able to do things on your own. So if you don't want to always depend on your Japanese boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever else, yeah, learn kanji. Come on.
What was the hardest part of learning Japanese?
Maybe the different levels of politeness were confusing. The keigo is because I've always been self-employed except for my 1 year of English teaching the first, and so I don't use keigo that much, and so even now I've absorbed a lot of it and studied a lot of it, so I can not embarrass myself. But if I have to really, like the extreme keigos where you're really raising your the person you're talking to or really lowering yourself, I have to think about that, and so I'm still not ideal at working. If I would have worked in a Japanese company, I'd be perfect, but I'm still not perfect at that. So I just stick with teine language, and it's not gonna, yeah.
Any advice to those just started learning Japanese?
I would say don't be intimidated by it. A lot of people they psych themselves out. They get sort of a mental block. They think, oh, Japanese is so hard, I'll never do it. And that's not true. It's grammatically simpler than, say, French or Hindi or Tibetan. The pronunciation is easier than Chinese. There's no tones really to speak of. And sure, if you want to worry about pitch accents, that's hard-ish, but even if you don't worry about them, you'll be understood just fine. I would say, yeah, your attitude, and then make it fun. Make sure you enjoy it, because just like any other skill, have fun, don't psych yourself out, and study all the skills at once. And it helps if you can live in Japan or be in a Japanese community, so you have real Japanese people around you to practice it with.
Maybe we can switch to Japanese a little bit?
Okay.
じゃあなんか日本語学習において言いたいことってありますか、他に。
とりあえず、気にしないで喋ってればいい。めちゃくちゃアメリカ人の訛りで喋ってるけど、それを気にしすぎると何もできなくなるから、それよりもただコミュニケーションちゃんと取ってればそれでいいんじゃない。僕は多分例えば哲学についてとか宗教について政治家についてそういう会話できる。なんか言いたいこと伝わる、けど日本人のように喋ることができない。いつまでもアメリカ人が日本語を喋ってることになるんだけど、それ別に平気いいじゃん。僕はアメリカ人だからいいんじゃないかな。だからそれ潔癖主義になるとなんか動くなくなる人が多いんじゃないかな。
確かにそれは僕もそうです。完璧主義になると言語は学べないですよね。僕も英語喋るけど日本語のアクセント入ってる方がなんか日本人っぽいから面白いな。確かにナチュラルな日本語よりもちょっと外国人のアクセント入ってる方が意外とローカルの人からちょっとスペシャルに思われたりするのは
そうみんな言うけどなんか上手と言われると実はあんまり上手じゃないという意味になる。だって本当にすごく日本人みたいに喋ってればみんななんか違和感感じてなんかうわーどうして何それみたいな感じになる。でもそう結構親しみに、なるんじゃないかな。外国人の訛りの方が。
なんか日本語を喋れない外国人に日本人は優しいと思いますか？アメリカだと結構英語喋れないと結構やっぱきついっていうかなんか当たり前だからもう外国人でも英語喋るのがそれはどう思いますか？日本
は優しいと思う。逆に観光客民泊経営してるからいっぱい観光あとガイドもしてるからいろんな人と会うんだけどすごくいいと思う。アメリカよりも正反対だと思う。アメリカに暮らせば英語が大事。英語かスペイン語が大事じゃないかな。
なるほど、ありがとうございます。じゃあ、maybe we can back to English. And people say that you will never be Japanese after living in Japan for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. But if you're living in America 10 years, 20 years, people think you're American. What's your opinion?
Well, that's true. I mean, that's a big difference between the two countries. I mean, America is a melting pot. It's a country of immigrants made up completely of immigrants. Everybody who's not Native American is an immigrant sooner or later. And whereas Japan is still largely homogenous, it's still pretty monolithic. And I'm okay with that. I acknowledge that, I could live here the rest of my life. I could change my citizenship to Japanese citizenship. I haven't. I'm just a permanent resident. But I could. But I still wouldn't be considered Japanese by most people. Even if I had a Japanese passport, I would still not be. But that doesn't only apply to me. Up here, I know people who moved to Tohoku when they were 20. Now they're 60, 70 years old, but in the little village where they're from, they're still yosomono. They're still considered an outsider, basically. I mean, they're welcomed and they're treated well, but they're still considered an outsider. And I'm at peace with that. I'm okay with because I never will be Japanese. It's true. No matter how long I'm here, my way of interacting with the world, my way of thinking, I'm American. I'm maybe a weird American now from having half my life lived here, but I'm still, in some place, very fundamentally American, and I don't think that'll ever really change. So, it is what it is. I'm okay with that.
And also, you like to be American as well.
Yeah, I like to. It's fine. I like it. Yeah.
Please check his channel, Go North Japan, especially if you're like hiking Japan, countryside. For some people, Tokyo can be hectic, Tokyo can be overwhelming. So especially if you're from countryside or not from big cities, you might like North Japan.
Thanks so much for coming up. I really appreciate you coming up to interview me.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for watching so far. How was it? That was interesting. I would like to interview someone like him, Japan expert living in Japan for long time, speak Japanese. If you're one of them, please let me know. Okay, anyway, thank you for watching. If you like this video, click like button. Please subscribe to my channel. If you have any question you want me to ask people in Japan, please leave the comment too. See you next time.